Story number 1. The Diner Incident. Back in 2019, I worked as a server at a small local diner for about a year. It was a pretty regular place, nothing fancy. We closed at 10 p.m., but my shift didn't end until 11 since I had to clean the tables in the back room before heading home. One night, not long after I had locked the front doors, I started wiping down the tables like usual. Just a few minutes in, I heard several loud knocks from the front. I jumped and looked over. There was a man standing there, staring through the glass. I called out loudly that we were closed for the night. It wasn't unusual for people to show up late, but this guy didn't leave. He just stood there for a bit, like he hadn't heard me. I walked closer and repeated myself, even louder this time. He stared at me without reacting, gave a weird little smile, and then finally walked away. I figured maybe he was drunk or just confused, so I shrugged it off and got back to cleaning. About 15 minutes later, just as I was wiping the front counter, I caught a glimpse of movement by the door. It was the same man again, knocking. This time, I was irritated. I raised my hands like, "What are you doing?" and told him very firmly that we were closed and he needed to leave. He looked upset, tried pushing the door to see if it was locked, and then walked off again. I checked the parking lot to make sure he was really gone and didn't see him anywhere. I was a bit on edge, but kept working until a loud bang echoed from the back door. I froze. I wasn't sure if I had locked it or not. Then the banging started again, harder and faster. My heart was racing. Thankfully, the door was locked. I didn't wait to find out more. I ran out the front, jumped in my car, and called the police. While I waited, I watched from my car as the man walked around inside the restaurant. He had somehow gotten in. He messed with the cash register for a bit, but then disappeared toward the back. When the police arrived, they confirmed he was gone. The back door had been badly dented, and the handle was almost ripped off, probably from being hit with a hammer. Strangely enough, the only thing he stole was the tip jar from the front counter. It still blows my mind how far someone will go for a few dollars. I can't help but wonder what would have happened if I hadn't left when I did. Story number 2. The Man in the Pet Store. After years of stocking shelves, I landed a job at a chain pet store that had me driving a van full of supplies to different locations every night. I'd start at 2 p.m. and usually finish around midnight, but overtime was common. It paid well, so I didn't complain. On one particular night, it was around 11 p.m. when I arrived at the final store. Since all stores closed at 9, I was always alone inside. I backed up to the loading dock, unlocked the back door, and wheeled in a few stacks of boxes. I started sorting everything into the proper aisles when I heard a soft thud near the front of the building. I paused and listened, but everything went silent again. I figured it was just the building settling. I'd gotten used to strange noises during these night shifts. I kept working until I was about halfway through stalking. Then I heard something that made my blood run cold. A single, clear cough. I froze. I knew no one else was supposed to be here. I waited, dead silent, then began slowly walking toward the back exit. Once outside, I locked the door behind me and got into the van, feeling safer. Just as I pulled out my phone to call 911, I heard footsteps racing toward the door. The handle began to jiggle, then came loud, aggressive banging. A man was yelling from inside, begging me to let him out. His voice was full of rage. I didn't answer. I just stayed on the phone with the dispatcher as the man continued to scream and pound the door. The police arrived pretty quickly. I handed them the key and waited outside. A few minutes later, they came out with a man in handcuffs. He had a large knife on him, nothing else. What chills me the most is that he wasn't there to steal anything. He was just hiding in the store with a knife. I'd never seen him before, and to this day, I have no idea what he really wanted. I'm just glad I didn't stick around to find out. Story number 3. Overnight drive-thru shift gone wrong. For nearly 3 years, I worked overnight shifts at a fast food drive-thru while attending college part-time. The schedule actually worked well for me. I had my days free for classes and studying. Most nights were slow and uneventful, especially when I had a coworker scheduled with me. But sometimes I had to work alone, and that's when things got weird. One night, I was working solo. It had been quiet all shift, just the occasional car swinging by for a quick snack or drink. Around 2 a.m., things went totally dead. I hadn't had a customer in 45 minutes, so I started cleaning to pass the time. At some point, I walked past the front counter and noticed headlights shining through the front windows. A car was parked right outside the main entrance. The dining area had closed at 9 p.m., so that seemed odd. Still, I figured the driver was just checking their phone or something. Then my headset beeped. Someone was in the drive-thru. A man with a soft voice asked for a large soda. I told him to pull forward and started pouring the drink. He pulled up fast and stared into the building while I worked. I handed him the drink, took his exact change, and told him to have a good night. I walked away, but noticed a minute later that he was still sitting there, watching me through the window. I asked if he needed something else. He stared silently for a few moments before finally saying no and driving off. It was creepy, but I shook it off until the headset beeped again. This time, no one responded. I looked at the security monitors and saw the same car parked in the drive-thru lane a few feet from the pickup window. I backed away, heart racing. Suddenly, the man drove forward and started pounding on the window. Then he sped around to the front and jumped out of his car, holding something in his hand. He ran up to the locked front doors and started shaking them violently. I grabbed the store phone and called 911 as fast as I could. He yanked on the handles a few more times, then gave up and drove off. When police arrived, I gave them the full story. They came back in the morning to get the security footage and hopefully track the guy down. I never found out if they did. What I do know is that being alone that night made me a target, and that whatever he was planning, I was lucky to have been locked inside and not face to face with him.